Scott Williams, three-time NBA champion in the house.
I was going to go out there and hit one of these half-court shots because every time I hit a half-court shot, the Lopes always win.
I was just saying that.
10 attempts, I was 0 for 10. That's not a good sign.
You're a lot taller than I thought. I got to be honest.
I look smaller on TV, right?
Oh, yeah. Totally. Where do you compare a GCU men's basketball game against New Mexico State compared, I don't know, calling Minnesota Wild games?
Well, this one's probably right near the top for sure. Yeah, this has a whole different level of intensity. You can feel it already, right, down here?
Oh, yeah. I can.
Yeah, when New Mexico ran right by us, New Mexico State, yeah, you just felt an intensity in their eyes, certainly from the Lopes. I mean, everybody's dialed in for sure.
Now, where do you compare this crowd compared to, I don't know, like the Dolphins or the Wild?
Well, yeah, it's right there. And even, all the NBA players, and Scott included, I mean, there's no better atmosphere definitely in Phoenix than right here at GCU Arena. I mean, the Havocs, the crowd atmosphere, the music, everything.
Now, I'm interested to hear this. So let's say final seconds of the game, fourth quarter, tie game, buzzer beater shot. What's Barry Butel's game-winning calls as the Lopes defeat the Aggies?
That is just spontaneous, right? Right?
Am I going to have to tune
when
in?
You're calling a game, it's all about the emotion, how the crowd reacts to it. Everything is just kind of off the cuff.
What's been your favorite call so far this season?
Wow. Yeah,
good question.
This year's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride as far as a lot of the three-point shots, usually at clutch times. I think the Jenkins shot that was near the buzzer there was so unpredictable. That was strong. That's top of mind. But usually it's the ones that are near the buzzer. Yeah.
I like it. What do you think is going to be the expectation going in tonight? Obviously, what do you think is going to have to change for this Lopes team to bounce back after that 20-point loss in Las Cruces a few weeks ago?
Well, talking to Coach Molly this week, it's all about defense. They averaged 84.5 points per game in the last two games, but unfortunately they gave up over 90. So their defense has to show up here. They have to put pressure on the ball. Three-point shots, New Mexico State has hit 29 in the last two games. They are lethal from beyond the arc. They can shoot, they can score, and they have depth. So the intensity level has to be ratcheted up big time.
Now, of course, your call is going to be spontaneous. What would your call be? Just to put you on the spot here, Mr. Kyle Board.
It's got to be spontaneous. You can't script these things, Jack. It's just whatever pops into your head first, It's just,
come on.
It's got to be. Set me up with the situation.
What would you say?
Boom goes the dynamite. Christmas has come early here in Phoenix. The Lopes tramp the Aggies 72-69. Game-winning three-point shot at the buzzer from Carlos Johnson. How do you like that?
I love that. Christmas
loves it.
Christmas is early. Boom goes the dynamite. Very original.
Count moves to 2-2. Jacob's dad, of course, Jack Wilson, 12-year pro in the big leagues, most notably for the Pittsburgh Pirates in the hole at shortstop. 2002 to 2009 before joining both the Seattle Mariners and the Atlanta Braves on the tail end of his career. He's been here in each of the first two weekends, still the head coach at Thousand Oaks High School for their baseball program. So the count runs full at 3-2 for Channy Ortiz. Had a chance to sit down with Jack yesterday before the game, talk about Jacob's decision to join GCU. Talked heavily about his relationship with his son entering his freshman year here in Phoenix. As the 3-2 offering is ripped in the air, right field. Gonna hook foul down the line and into the lawn, so we'll do it again. Another quality at bat here for Channy Ortiz. Jack touched on the fact that him and Jacob, everywhere Jack traveled as a big leaguer during his career, they'd go to a Dave & Buster's, big video game family, big arcade people as well. Jack said that if you got to 10,000 tickets, you'd be able to pick up a prize, and there was a prize called a hidden treasure where you could win a signed baseball by either a minor league player, big league player, or even a Hall of Famer. Jack even said that they pulled a Stan Musial autographed baseball at one point during his career when he was in Pittsburgh with the Pirates. As a 3-2 offering, fouled straight back, count remains 3-2. Well, Jack said that about a month after meeting with Andy and Greg Wallace, almost offering Jacob the scholarship entering his sophomore year in high school here at GCU, Jack and Jacob went to a Dave & Buster's here in Phoenix and won another signed baseball. And that baseball happened to be a signed baseball by Tim Salmon, who is arguably the most notable professional baseball player that played here at Grand Canyon University. And Jack touched on the point that that was the ultimate sign that his son should sign here at Grand Canyon University. And again, throughout the first 7 games in this homestand for the Lopes, he has started at third base for Coach Stankiewicz, proving to be a valuable asset early on with this expanded roster. Again, a ton of depth for the Lopes. And, you being a fan of what you do as well, like you almost have to check, Trent Rush, the broadcaster, at the door. And then once you go inside, you're the family man. You got to take care of stuff, like you said, when it comes to mortgage, paying the bills, supporting a family. So do you find that, I don't want to say like more stressful, because, it is family time, but is it almost the same?
That's just life.
Yeah.
That's life. You have your work life and your life, and you try not to mix the two. In this business, it's so hard, because I think you just, it's look, it's Trent, Angels broadcaster. That when that's all that defines you, I think that can put even more stress at work and do all that. I think you have to have different things about you that just make who you are as a person. Jack, if you'll allow me just for a moment, what you are doing in this podcast, I think this is so good. And understanding things at a deeper level, and the time you spend and the guests that you get. I am a huge fan of your show. I love it. The people that you've had on are awesome. So, and you really do ask great questions. Jack, you have a very, very bright career ahead of you. I know that. I
really appreciate that, man. Me personally, I think I have a long road to go, only being a young kid. But yeah, like you said, like it's about experiences, I wouldn't be in the situation I am today. I wouldn't be as motivated as I am today without certain experiences, life experiences, not just, in, sports casting or for what I want to do, which is, I'm very grateful for everything. Like there have been some, hard times that have molded me into who I am today, like building up that passion and that potential to ask questions like this. Because again, the last question I asked you, I find to be one of the more important questions in life, because without that balance, without, checking whether it's your ego or, like your work at the door, like you're not going to be a very fulfilled, happy person at the end of the day. And again, like a lot of people think you should never be satisfied. I'm one of those kids that thinks that you can be satisfied at the end of the day, but continue to strive for more, like you're allowed to be proud of the work that you put in.
Jack, to have that kind of perspective at 22, you know what I would have killed to understand things at that level at 22 years old? I mean, I barely get it now. I mean, it takes a lot to really think of that. I love my family. I love my wife. I love my house. I love my dogs. And I love baseball. And if I can make it all work, then I want to do it. And it's understanding everything that comes into this. I think a lot of people get really tunnel vision on, okay, this is the job, and this is my next step, and then I'm going to do this. Life doesn't work like that.
Because you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw that you actually wrote a note to yourself. What was it, New Year's Eve, 1985, that where you wanted to be 10 years from then, like 90, 95, 96. And though you weren't, in Philly like you wanted to be, you were in arguably the biggest market that the sports world, if not the entire world, has to offer in New York. To me, like that's a surreal thing, because you're setting yourself up for success right away just by writing it down and putting it in your brain. Like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to have to do in order to get there. Did you, like, in that 10-year period, did your aspirations, evolve over that time? Like when you look back at those 10 years, like when you go from point A to point Z, like what do you look back at and think like, oh, that was a defining moment in starting my career?
Well, there were a lot of them, but to your point about this story, I was 15. It was New Year's Eve, 1985 into 1986. Yeah. I told you probably 13 or 14 is when this idea crystallized in my mind. This is something I wanted to do. By the time I was 15, I was a sophomore in high school. I had been calling some basketball games for a while. That really, I enjoyed the football games. The basketball games I enjoyed a lot more. I just felt a little bit more of the energy. And kind of just fueled my desire more. But I remember staying up, waiting for the ball to drop at 15 and just writing myself a note and sticking it in a little piggy bank I had when I was a kid. And it was basically just a note to promise myself. It was dated December 30th. I don't have the note anymore. I just vividly remember, it might still be somewhere, but I don't know where it is. It was dated December 31st, 1985. and I said, 10 years from now, I will be on the air. I think I said in Philadelphia because I didn't specify major market or whatever, but I grew up 2 hours west of Philadelphia and grew up listening to Phillies games. I mean, this is who I wanted to be, a Phillies radio announcer. I just said, I'm going to be on the radio in Philadelphia. And what happened in the intervening 10 years, I went to college, I went to Penn State, got my internship at WFAN. I graduated, started working in the Harrisburg market. I got a call back to go to WFAN as a producer. And I spent 4 years as a producer, which this is where this period comes in. I was getting some part-time on-air shifts on weekends, holidays, just really odd times. I was a full-time producer, but every once in a while when there's an opening in the update shift, I would get a call, probably like maybe 3, 4, or 5 times a year. The Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So it just so happens that 10 years later, on New Year's Eve, 1995, I had the midnight update on WFAN, which I just recently found the tape of again. I have the tape of that update. And the guy I was handing it off to that night, who was the talk show host, was Bob Wischusen, who's now, does play-by-play for the Jets and on ESPN, very successful play-by-play announcer. But I think I probably remembered at the time that my note didn't come true. I wasn't on the radio in Philadelphia, but I was on the radio in New York. And it wasn't my full-time job, but I was on the radio. I was on the biggest radio station in New York, giving a sports report at, exactly 10 years after I wrote myself that note. To your point about envisioning success, I think I always did. I just don't know how I would have measured what I considered a success. And I'm still not sure. There are still times when I have to remind myself of what I'm doing. When you're sitting there thinking about, there are certain jobs that are higher profile or this or that, or, make more money or this or that. Sometimes you have to remind yourself what you're actually doing. And I give that advice to people all the time. I have people who are, breaking into the business and are doing things, and maybe they're not happy with what they're doing because they didn't get a particular job, or that they still have aspirations to go a little bit higher. I sit them down and say, look at where you're working right now. Remember what you're doing. You're working at this outlet and this many people see you every day or hear you every day. That's working in this business. Everybody isn't going to get the break to be the number one play-by-play announcer on Sunday Night Baseball for the Yankees or whoever. It's, there are very few of those jobs, and the people that have them don't give them up that easily.
Oh, yeah.
So in order to, there are a lot of different ways you can measure your own success, and just having a job that pays you to do this and gives you an outlet to reach people, that is a measure of success that you have to be able to recognize and not get bogged down. Because if your goal is to be the Yankees play-by-play announcer, and, TV and radio, there are 2 people that have those jobs right now, right? If there are 1 million people that want those jobs, well, there are going to be a lot of disappointed people who, if you're thinking that's the only way you're measuring your success, you're not going to be happy about it. So if you have a desire to broadcast or talk about sports or write about sports, and you have an outlet that lets you do that on a regular basis, and it is, and even better, it's your job, you've achieved a level of success that you certainly have to recognize.
What do you think is your favorite venture as as like adults, whether it's like on game shows or now, obviously as kids, roughhousing all the time, but as adults, what do you think has been your favorite venture with the 5 of you?
Man, there's been some good ones for sure. I would say, man, Gronk Beach. So the Duos Party was a good one for sure. But we're actually launching today our YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
and it's great, man. It was kind of started because Rob retired for a year, and when he was playing, we always used games as a way to get together as a family. We'd always come together. Everyone come to the game. We'd be able to see each other, 4 or 5, maybe 10 times a year. But then once he retired, we really didn't have that anymore. So we said, hey, let's do this YouTube channel and let's do some events together. We can compete against each other, bring in some cool names. So we did. So one of the videos that are launching today is we went deep sea fishing. And we caught some monsters that we pulled up. We all got sick. We were all throwing up, but it's just a good time, man. So we did another one that's also launching today with the launch, and it's just a beer pong tournament and just having fun with a couple other celebrities as well. So just trying to find ways to come together. So I think, man, this is something that we go and we film, 5, 6, 7 videos at a time on a weekend. And the last one we went on was in Tampa, man. It was just one of those trips where you're like, man, this isn't even work. Like this is amazing. So this is so much fun. And like everything we're doing is just great. So that's been one of my funnest things and I think it's just going to continue on, man. And we just keep thinking of new ideas where we're like, this is so epic. We got to do it. So excited to see what happens, once the season's over and we're able to film a little bit more.
Now going through the industry, you have your time at Syracuse, you get the gig with the Clippers, and then earlier this year you actually got to do a broadcast with them. Because that's kind of like a rare feat. You're kind of in a rare boat there. Like, what's it like doing a broadcast with your dad?
Right. So, yeah, we were calling the game for separate outlets, but we had him on the pregame show.
Yeah.
Right. We had him on the pregame show, which I had been hosting a decent amount on the road, the pre and post for the Clippers on TV. And so it was me, Chauncey Billups, and my dad. And I'd grown close to Chauncey this year, and he's a great dude, and he made it that much better for us. He was really great in the middle of us. We called it almost a Billups sandwich or an Eagle sandwich. I'm not really sure because technically everyone was saying it's an Eagle sandwich, but I'm saying no because you wouldn't call it bread sandwich.
The base of the sandwich.
Right. If it's a bologna in the middle, it's not a bread sandwich with bologna. Yeah, so I made that point. But it was surreal. We had gotten the opportunity to do it when I was in college once, and we thought it was once in a lifetime opportunity. We didn't expect, certainly within 2 years, to have another chance. And it was just, especially given the circumstance, I grew up loving the NBA. I was an NBA junkie from a young age. When I say young, I mean like 2-3 years old.
Yeah.
When I was 3 years going into my dad's office and just paging through media guides of NBA teams and trying to remember whatever I could. I couldn't even read, but I was just figuring it out as I went and looking at pictures or whatever it be. Like I was obsessed with the NBA at a young age. And so to do it at an NBA arena for an NBA game, that made it really, really special. It was really, really cool because that was how I knew my dad growing up. Of course, I watched him when he did college basketball and football and all this stuff, but the Nets were the Nets. And he was always known around the area as the Nets announcer. And now it's grown and his profile has grown more as his career has gone on. But certainly early in my life, that was the case. And I was like one of the biggest Nets guys. And so while it wasn't a Nets game, to see him in that environment and to do something with him in that environment, it was Clippers against the Philadelphia 76ers in Philly. And my mom came. It was a really cool moment. And so we got a chance. Actually, the last game before the shutdown for the Clippers was against the Warriors. And he did that game too. So we didn't do anything special for that one, but it's just cool now every time we're on the same call, on the same game. And I think it'll always be special. It's just different.
Benchwarmers, probably one of my favorite comedy movies of all time. Big baseball
thank you.
fan. You guys, you get to whack a bunch of mailboxes with a Hall of Famer and Reggie Jackson, right?
Yeah.
So just overall, that's got to be one of the coolest things ever because you get to whack a bunch of mailboxes with a Hall of Famer, some of your best friends, and Spade and John Heater. Like, how was that experience for you guys, and how was it for him? Was he very open to doing it right away?
I always thought, here's the thing, Jack. I always thought to myself, how are we going to get Reggie Jackson?
Yeah.
He's a Hall of Fame. Like, these guys are dying to be in movies. They don't get offered movies. They get typecast. I get typecast as a comedian. He gets typecast as only a baseball, as Mr. October. So when he's offered and paid to go out, and we took him out to dinner and everything, he loved it. He was so happy we couldn't get rid of him. He said, "What are we doing tomorrow?" I said, "That's it. So